Hi, and welcome back to the We Needy Roads podcast. And as Stain sung in the early 2000s hit, it's been a while. And yes, dear listener, it's been about a month. Work kind of doubled to the point that I was weeks behind on House of the Dragon and The Rings of Power. And if I haven't got time for two of the best shows of the year, then I definitely didn't have time to pod. At least not to the level you've come to expect from We Needy Roads. So, as I spent the last month working every hour under the sun, what have you been doing with your time, David?
I've been very professional, Neil, and I've been doing some things and stuff.
Things and stuff sounds fascinating.
I've had work as well. Not, I sort of just plod along. I had to go to Norfolk. That was far. You ever tried to go to Norwich? Norwich is far.
Is it? I don't know.
Anyway, but no, I've been enjoying The Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. And
As have I.
Have you even finished them yet?
Of course I finished them.
Okay, good.
But we've not had time to really kind of get into them here. We was doing every couple of episodes, we'd do a little where we are now on it, and then, work got in the way and life got in the way.
I mean, to be fair, I've not been able to go to the cinema for ages. Like, I had that period where I was able to go for, like, every film that was coming out, and then the last, 5 releases that I've wanted to see, I've not been able to see any of them. So you're not the only one that's being tied up with shit, and then you just pod in the meantime, and then, everything will work out all right.
Wasn't it just because, you're unemployed at that point?
Let's not tell the world. People don't need to know that. I wasn't unemployed. I was just working my notice period to get to the other job.
And anyway,
except it wasn't a notice period; it was a gardening leave until my next.
Anyway, mate, the charges didn't stick, and no one pressed charges, so it's all good. Well, David, all I can say is don't worry, because as long as you hit that wire with a connecting hook at precisely 88 miles per hour, the instant the lightning strikes the tower, everything will be fine. David, have you ever been struck by lightning? Only
once.
Really?
Yeah. When I was at so do you know, like, church camp? You probably never went. You weren't religious, were you? I was. So my mum. No. I was quite a religious child. I went to church camp a few times, and the church. You know how churches have massive lightning, receipt rods,
steeples.
Yeah, and they've got the lightning things going down there. Well, it was massive. It was a really stormy night, and lightning was just flashing all around it. But thankfully, most of it got just straight down the rod, but little trickles. You didn't smash it into you. I've got a scar. Have you not seen my scar?
No, I thought that was just a Harry Potter thing.
Dude. No, yeah, I've got a scar going down my I haven't never seen. I'll show you at the stag. Let the stag do. The scar.
Honestly, right. When I wrote this script, this was "Have you been struck by lightning?" was one, a cheap tie-in to a Back to the Future quote, and two, because there's a new Australian punk band that my mate Jamie recommended to me called The Chats, with their brilliantly named album called Get Fucked, and they've got a song on it called Struck by Lightning. So I just basically wanted to mention them, and I didn't ever think you would have actually been struck by lightning, but there you go.
Neil, come on.
What?
Of course I've not been struck by lightning. Come on. What's going on here?
Should have guessed at church camp, shouldn't I? Should have guessed at church camp.
Although, having said that, my granddad he did have a massive scar. He had 2 scars on his leg, and I've got the story for them. Not long before he died, one was where he got shot by a spit. Was it a spit? I don't know. It was a bullet ricocheted off the ground from an airplane, and during World War II, and hit him in the leg when he was a boy. He was about 12. And he had this massive scar, and the other scar he had was from where he'd been hit. I don't know whether it was lightning or some other form of electricity. Nah, you know what? It might have just been an electrical shortage. That's not as exciting.
I mean, getting shot by a Spitfire, though. I mean, that's probably.
Well, it was some airplane.
More interesting.
I don't know what it was, but yeah, it was massive bullet that had to be removed from his leg, and he had this scar there, and I didn't know existed for a long time.
And so, Aussie punk bands and fake stories about getting struck by lightning aside, coming up in this episode, I'm going to review Martin McDonagh's first film since the Oscar-winning 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, his new film, The Banshees of Inisherin, which I cannot keep from calling, David. What do I keep trying to call it?
Ed Sheeran. I don't even know why. Why?
Because it sounds like it.
Banshees of Ed Sheeran. How does it?
Inisherin.
Is it just because they're both Irish?
Ed Sheeran's not Irish. I don't know enough about Ed Sheeran to know or care.
I'm a good Now you've got me doubting myself. I'm going to have to Google it, but I'm a good 80% sure Ed Sheeran's Irish.
Well, that would make it a little bit more, apt,
Is
wouldn't
he
it?
not?
The
Is he
Banshees
not
of
Irish?
I don't know enough about Ed Sheeran
He's
or
an
care enough
English
about Ed Sheeran.
singer-songwriter. Well, bugger. He was born in Suffolk.
Even that's stretching it a
He's
bit,
got to
isn't
have
it?
Irish heritage, though, right? With a name like Sheeran. Yeah, he has one of those songs where, like,
I don't...
they're talking about being married
I don't know.
in Ireland or something with his grandparents.
You know more about Ed Sheeran than I did, which is exactly anything about Ed Sheeran. You've just ruined my Banshees. We're going to be talking about Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin, which is hotly tipped for the Oscars this year, and it re-teams his In Bruges co-stars of Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. And also, I'm going to be taking a look at Olivia Wilde's second film as a director, the mildly controversial, for all the wrong reasons, Don't Worry Darling. And Prime's new horror show, The Devil's Hour, with Peter Capaldi and Jessica Raine, which is definitely mismarketed as a creepy horror show, and it's so much more. David, what are you going to be talking about?
I am going to be talking about Dharma, the Netflix, which I think's controversial, the controversial Netflix show Dharma Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, sorry. I know I'm going to touch upon some of those controversies with you, Neil. Maybe you'll like them, maybe you won't. And I'm also going to talking about the new film that's hit on Netflix recently, All Quiet on the Western Front, which is depressing viewing, but we can talk about that.
Okay, so first up is Martin McDonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin, his first film since 2017's Oscar-winning Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, that reteams his In Bruges co-stars Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell in his dark tale of friendship gone awry, set on the small Irish island of Inisherin. Now, David, have you seen the trailer for this? Or do you know much about
Yeah. This was one of the films I was really excited to see that I've just not been able to go to the cinema to see.
Right, so from the trailer, would you guess from the trailer that this is a period film?
Yes. I thought it would have been like around the 30s.
Yeah, you're not far off. It's set in 1923 during the Irish Civil War. And Gleeson plays a folk musician called Colm, who suddenly decides he no longer wants to be friends with his long-time nice but dull friend, Podrick, played by Colin Farrell. And as tensions between the two escalate and begin to affect others on the island, Colm kind of brings things to a head by threatening to cut off one of his fingers every time Podrick tries to talk to him. And that's the plot, man. It gets dark. It gets really dark.
Okay, so how many fingers do we lose?
Well, that'd be a spoiler. I'm not going to tell you. That's all you need to know about the film. It's just, obviously, and what I'm going to mention in the review, but there will be no spoilers. However, I will say this is a masterclass of portraying sorrow, loneliness, and misery from both Gleeson, but especially Farrell, who is on career best form here and should most definitely be in all the awards conversations next year.
Farrell, sorry, not Gleeson. Which one?
Well, do you know what? All four of the main actors in this film, Farrell, Gleeson, his sister played by Kerry Condon, and
okay, that's interesting because Farrell's one of those actors for me. He's quite. I've never been a massive fan of his work. Like I didn't particularly like In Bruges. I liked In Bruges, but I wouldn't have never pictured him as someone that's like, oh yeah, give him all the awards, sort of that kind of actor.
Well, what did you think of him in The Batman?
Like
as Penguin,
filled with prosthetic, wasn't he? He wasn't either. To be honest, I completely forgot his performance in it altogether, so it can't have been very memorable. You know, Paul Dano was outshone him.
Or arguably, he disappeared into the character that much you forgot it was him.
No, to be honest, I forgot the character was even in it.
Even though his character is getting an HBO spin-off show.
Yep, even though.
Yeah, I think with Farrell, I know for me personally, he's one of these actors where he's in one of my worst hated films of all time as well, which is the remake of Total Recall, because he doesn't act in it.
Okay.
He just
fair enough.
I hate it. It ruined my birthday, man. I went to see it on my birthday the year it was out.
Yeah, there are some films that you're like, I can understand why they want to remake that because it was such a good concept at the time. And it's like, oh, it's been like, 30, 40 years. Let's see if we can do it again. Cash that cow.
They didn't go to Mars. The whole point of the film was they go to Mars. And is he sure? And the idea is, has the main character, Doug Quaid, been to Mars or not before? Are these fake memories? If they never go to Mars... And also, it was directed by Len Wiseman, who at the time, I think his wife was Kate Beckinsale. And Beckinsale plays the Sharon Stone role from the film. And in the original, Arnie shoots her in the head and gives her that classic, consider this a divorce line. But of course, because she's the director's girlfriend in this one, she survives to the end of the film. and I don't think, and Jessica Biel's in it playing like Arnie's actual resistance fighter girl, and I do not believe I couldn't even tell you what her character name was because she's so just underserved by the script. It was terrible and it made me angry. Also, it was Bryan Cranston's first film, I think, after Breaking Bad, and he appeared for it in all of one scene towards the end. And you're like, yeah, you did this. You took money for this. No.
Yeah.
And
well, anyway,
Farrell was just bad in it.
But he was very good in this, though.
Oh, mate, it's such a perfect, simple idea, right? What if one of your best friends suddenly doesn't want to be friends with you anymore? And Farrell's heartbreaking in it, man, because you can see all the emotions and the confusion on his face. He's a nice, simple guy, and he's a bit dull, and he's just not equipped to deal with this level of rejection. The film also has stunning cinematography by Free Billboards DP Ben Davis. So, in between shooting the amazing-looking Eternals, the less amazing The Kingsman, he's also shooting Kraven the Hunter for Sony coming up soon with, what's his chops? The guy, Aaron Taylor-Johnson.
What's his chops?
What's his chops? Yeah. So, and also the music. Oh, mate, the music's brilliant in it. You get a really somber but perfect score from regular Coen brothers, and I checked out, and it's actually now regular Martin McDonagh collaborator Carter Burwell as well. It's one of the few soundtracks I've actually been listening to while I've been writing recently because it's just great stuff. Now, yeah.
Is that the same person? Sorry, I'm not familiar with the name. Is it the same person that did like Free Billboards? The music as well. He did the music for it.
Yeah, exactly. And he did. He does a lot of the Coen brothers stuff as well, Carter Burwell. So yeah, one of the best in his field. Now, as you mentioned about the other actors, you said, oh well, what, just Farrell? No, the supporting cast is superb as well. Kerry Condon, who I don't think a lot of us really know that much. I mean, I don't think she's that well known. I think she's probably most known as being Stacey Ehrmantraut from Better Call Saul, playing Mike's daughter-in-law. And again, she could easily get a Best Supporting Actress nod for this because she is the glue that kind of holds much of Farrell's character's life together. In the Inisherin, he plays his sister Siobhan. You've also got the new Joker himself, Barry Keoghan. And I'm sure we're pronouncing that wrong, so your friend Pam can tell us how we pronounce that correctly, right?
Yeah, you get it. Yeah. I think she laughs.
How would you pronounce it?
I'm not going to even bother. All right, okay. I'll give it a go. Keoghan.
That's what. Isn't that what I said? Keoghan.
Nah, you said Keoghan. I'm saying Keoghan.
You're saying Keegan?
No.
Anyway,
I'm going to find the message where she tells me how to say it.
Phonetically, yeah. But anyway, while you find that, he gets a great supporting turn as the local kind of town village idiot, Dominic. He steals his dad's, who's the main policeman's booze. He's always saying the wrong thing. He's got a crush on Farrell's sister Siobhan, and he just excels at playing the local fuck up really, really well. I've got to mention there's a special shout out. You've got a character in it, right? There's this old lady called Mrs. McCormack, who's like the annoying neighbour that no one wants to talk to because she'll turn up at your house and just talk for hours. And she's played by an actress called Sheila Flitton. And mate, the more the film goes on, the more and more she starts to look like the Grim Reaper. She carries this stick with a thing, a sharp implement on the end. It looks like a scythe a little bit, and she's got that really sort of crone style look to her. She's really, really creepy, man. She looks like a cross between Emperor Palpatine, a Shakespearean witch, and the Grim Reaper the more the film progresses.
A cross between Emperor Palpatine, the Grim Reaper, and who? A Shakespearean
witch. Yeah. She could have just stepped out of Bergman's The Seventh Seal, man, as death.
Could you not have just said a Shakespearean witch and removed Emperor Palpatine from that altogether?
Well, no, because she looks a lot like Emperor Palpatine as well.
Okay. She got like the saggy eyes there, like in the really like deep.
I want to watch it again as soon as I can because I think they make her look worse every time you see her. And again, it's all to do with how the situation in the town and with the characters is deteriorating really well. Now, I've got a few bullet points here. But someone mentioned, I didn't realise, right, the setup for this film is actually fairly close to Father Ted. In that, you got an exasperated older man dealing with the nice but dull younger man who won't leave him alone, and also it's the most times I've heard the word feck or fecking since Father Ted.
Fecking love Father Ted, man. That was a great show.
In fact, it's funny, man, because I saw an interview. They had the actress Kerry Condon was on Jimmy Kimmel, and because she said feck and not fuck, it got past the censors, and her accent was so strong. It was like you think she's putting it on a little bit. And that when she goes to do press, she'll have a bit more of a pronounced accent. the actor's accent for press, and she sounded exactly the same as her character, which again makes me like, I didn't realise she was an American when I saw her in Better Call Saul. She's awesome in it, man. And again, I don't think she's that well known, but this should hopefully launch her into more stuff because she was really, really good in it. You've also got lots of allegories for the Irish Civil War with the relationship of the two main characters. In that, when they're talking about the Irish Civil War on the mainland, they're like, well, no one really knows what they're fighting about, and they were all friends like a day before. And that's kind of, the whole thesis of what this film is. It's, well, why is Colm suddenly no longer wants to be friends with Colin Farrell's character, with Patrick? What is it that's caused him to do this? And there's a brilliant synergy to how Farrell's character, Patrick's, his relationship with Dom, the annoying kid played by Barry Keoghan, I can't say his fucking name, Barry, the new Joker.
I feel like it shouldn't be that difficult. Barry Keoghan.
I
feel like it's just a normal name. That's what I feel like. We're overcomplicating it.
Yeah, Barry Keoghan. So Patrick's relationship with Dom mirrors his relationship with Colm. Colm wants nothing to do with Patrick, which Patrick can't understand.
Is it Colm or Colum?
Colum. Look, you're just Colum.
It's Colum. I think it's Colum. I don't think it's Colum. I think it's Colum.
I think it's Colum as well.
Ah, cool. We're on the same page.
I mean, again, apologies to all our listeners in Ireland, because we have quite a few listeners in Ireland, so we're really sorry. But hey,
we are ignorant and can't say words.
I mean, despite it being really, really dour and depressing, it's also really darkly funny. The dialogue just trips off the characters, man. It's just so well written. There's a bit literally where they just say, "Are you rowing?" I don't think we're rowing. But it sounds like you're rowing. They literally just keep saying variations on "Are you rowing?" for about 2 or 3 minutes, and it's hilarious. Also, there's a wee donkey in it. Colin Farrell has a pet donkey called Jenny.
If Jenny dies, I ain't watching that film. I don't want to know what happens to that donkey. If anything happens to I feel like you wouldn't have brought her up otherwise.
I'm not going to tell you what happens to Jenny.
Fucking hell, the donkey dies. You've just told me.
I didn't tell you anything. You're imagining the worst here, man. You're just imagining the worst.
Oh, they're going to eat Jenny, aren't they?
Oh my god. Your mind goes to some dark places, man. And that's good for this film, but no, they don't. I can tell you they do not eat Jenny. That I can tell you. So say something happens to her, right? That's a spoiler. If something doesn't happen to her, and I tell you something happens to her, then that's tricking you to watch it. Oh look, just forget I mentioned that he has a really nice little mini donkey.
How can I now? Jenny. How can I now? When I watch the film, I'm just going to think, well, your time's coming. You're so.
It could end with Colm, not Colm. It could end with him and Jenny just chilling out in his house.
It's not going to though, is it? They're going to eat Jenny.
They do not eat Jenny. I can tell you. What I will say is every aspect of this film is perfect. Though awarding to people expecting a repeat of In Bruges, because it is not that film. It's not like that funny. I mean, there is the funny banter in it, but it's got just. Honestly, it makes you stare into the abyss, man. It makes you question your life. It brings up existential dread and what do you leave in the world when you're gone?
I'll tell you what you leave, Neil. Absolutely nothing. What is a legacy? It's planting trees in the ground you don't get to see.
I don't know.
That's from Hamilton right there.
I was going to say that from Hamilton. The second your voice turned to that.
But it's not. There's nothing, man. There's nothing left for you. You die. Eventually, mate, you want to know something really sad? There will come a time where all memory of you will cease to exist. All memory of you will be erased. And that's going to happen to everyone. Like, you could be the most famous person, the most influential person in existence. You could be George Washington, who's obviously, whose memories living for there will come a time where all memory of him will be wiped from existence, and he will cease to be. And that's going to happen to everybody, Neil. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to me.
God, okay, so you sound a bit like Colm in the film, to be fair. There's a bit, actually, when he says, he goes, do you know who you remember from the 13th century? And he's like, well, no one. He goes, no, you don't remember anyone from the 13th century, but you remember the music, because Colm's a folk musician. So he's trying to be inspired and, play music and write something that's going to leave a legacy. And he goes, everyone's heard of Mozart. And Colin Farrell's like, I haven't heard of him, so there's that out the window.
But you see, no, I agree with Colm. It's dark and true, unfortunately.
Well, what I will say, mate, at the end of this film, it's much more of a sorrowful film that explores existential dread of what are we doing with our lives, and literally, like we both just said, will anyone remember us when you're gone? However, it is stunning in every aspect. Like I said, Farrell should be up for Best Actor, hands down. Gleeson, Best Supporting Actor. Keegan, Best Supporting Actor as well, could be in with a shout. And Kerry Condon for Best Supporting Actress as well.
It definitely sounded like you said Kelly Condom then.
Good God, man.
That's what it sounded like you said.
We're not going to have any listeners in Ireland after this, man. I apologise for all the hate crimes that I've inadvertently done on this podcast and that David has just blatantly done on this podcast. Oh, yeah, by the way, David, I'm giving that a 5 out of 5 or a 10 out of 10.
Very big. Oh, wow. Okay.
It is a perfect film.
All the Neils.
Perfect. Oh, yeah, it's all the Neils there. So from a film that is dark, bleak, but has moments of jet black humour, I'm guessing, David, we're going to have a film that you've seen that is dark, bleak, and has no humour. What do we got for next?
I'm assuming you mean All Quiet on the Western Front, as the Dharma
Exactamundo.
show is not a film. Yes. Well, I watched this film recently. It dropped on Netflix, directed by Edward Berger, a German director. Honestly, I'd never heard of him before. Never seen any of his stuff. But of course, it's an adaptation of the much more famous book, which is authored by... This is where I should have notes, Neil.
It is where you should have notes, David.
No, by Enric Maria Ramacu. Enric Maria Ramacu.
Next up on David Tries to Pronounce Names.
German novelist who basically recounted their times of World War One, and so it was a book written about based on their own experiences of others, and it is. The book is in... I haven't read it, but from what I've read about it, and I've seen people speaking about it, is incredibly depressing. It's one of those books that you sort of... that you read in schools, and you analyse it in schools because it shows the decrepit nature of war and what war can bring to you. But All Quiet on the Western Front is exactly that. It is not a... You're going to go into it and you're going to come out of this film with depression, Neil. Have you seen it yet, first of all?
No, not yet, because I think the running time put me off. I didn't have... In the last couple of weeks, I've not... It's about 2.5 hours long, isn't it?
It is, but to be fair, it did not feel like a 2.5 hour film. It went... No, it went through that quite quickly.
My dad's watched it and loved it. He said it was... He keeps telling me like how many people died in it, and that it's a ridiculous number that is still unbelievable today.
Well, people died in World War One in general, or
just the amount of people that died in World War One.
Yeah. It's
stupidly massive number it was.
It's quite fitting actually, because obviously we've got Remembrance Weekend this weekend. So speaking about, we're recording this on the Thursday, the 10th of November. Remembrance Day is tomorrow, November 11th, and Remembrance Sunday is obviously this Sunday. So it's quite fitting to speak about World War One. This piece of media that comes out of it. This film is I don't know whether it's a masterpiece. It's definitely if you're in any way interested in knowing about experiencing in the very minimalist way possible the horrifying realities of that war, this film is probably the best depiction of it. It's from German perspective. The entire film is the German army. It doesn't pull any punches in showing you every reality and isolation and horror and pure hopelessness that war brought to the German troops. Which some people might think, well, I know some very ignorant people who were still Germans, they deserve it because they started it, or all that sort of nonsense, thinking it's the people, and quickly forget that it's actual, human beings that are taking part in this war, and that's what this film brings to you. It opens your eyes to everything that happened. And, I went after this film. I recently bought the new Call of Duty game, and I went and played that game, and it just felt so wrong to be playing a game that's trivializing and entertaining war, whereas this is something that's showing the realities of it. And it was such a parallel between the two, completely different forms of media. it really is heartbreaking. So anyway, it follows a gentleman called Paul who enlists in the German army alongside all his school friends, and it basically shows you from his perspective his walk through that war. He starts off very optimistic. Yeah, we're going to join there. We're going to kill the English. Yeah, we're going to serve our country proud. We're the next generation. We're the generation that's going to take Germany into this new world. And then they get there, and it's the reality of the situation. And then that reality freaking quickly becomes brutal, toxic, and fatal. The criticisms I have of the film are, I think the jump between the initial everything's groovy, we're doing it to fucking hell, what have we got ourselves into, is very, very quick, and then there's a slight time jump between them being on the front lines to being elsewhere. That could have been handled a little bit better, and there could maybe be a little bit more into the backstories of some of the other characters, so we get more emotionally attached to them, so that there's an even bigger punch to when they eventually, that it's a film based on war casualties happen.
What you're saying is not all of them are going to make it out, right?
Yeah, not all of them make it out. But anyway, I would definitely recommend this film to anybody that is even in the slightest bit interested in war films. It is this film, probably more than any, like I mentioned, shows the realities of the situation. It's the biggest anti-war film I think I've ever watched, and war films tend to have a bigger impact on me than any other film, any other friend. Like they tend to bring out a much stronger emotional response from me. Perhaps it's because I can't ever, hopefully won't ever experience anything like it, and you're sort of watching it through this media, and it feels almost wrong. And then you get so invested into them, and then how harsh and their lives are, and the fact that they just want their mothers, they just want to be home, cuddled up with their mum again,
I think it's the way it's sold to them, isn't it? At the start, from what I've read, it's that they think it's great. Yeah, we're going to go out, and like their best mates going out to war, and they think it's like a great thing, and it quickly just becomes, well, it's a horror film.
These are all educated young men as well. These aren't just like young men. Oh, we're old enough now. Well, we can go to war. They choose to go to war from an educated standpoint because they feel like they're the next generation of Germans that are going to bring in the new world, essentially. After the war, and then they get there, and then obviously the people around them aren't all educated. They aren't all from the same backgrounds as them. That's not really explored so much. It is in one character called Kat, who's a slightly older soldier, but yeah, it is very much sold to them as a we're going to be the difference. We're going to get out there. We're going to kill some French. The English in the war, I don't even think is mentioned. It's very much sort of Germany versus France.
Well, what I was going to mention as well is what was an interesting angle on this is because this is obviously the story in all its forms, from the book to the original film in 1930 to the TV series in 79. It was all based. It was always Americans playing German, made by American studios. This is a fully German film, from start to finish, isn't it? Well, like I said, the original film was actually 1930, so it came out the year after the novel, and it starred it was actually the first Best Picture winner, so it won Best Film, and it was the first one to win based on a novel. And I mean, you think this came out? So this film is what year? This film is 8 years away, the original, from being 100 years old. And I didn't realise. Apparently, the writer, he did another book afterwards called The Road Back, or it was made into a film called The Road Back anyway. And the film was actually banned in Germany because it was about the soldiers coming back, and it was warning them. It had a really strong anti-war message about the rising dangers of the dictatorship of Nazi Germany. And it was intended to be a powerful and controversial picture. And Universal actually made it with James Whale. And it caused so much hassle. The book, like I say, was banned in Nazi Germany. And the German government threatened to ban all Universal pictures films, unless scripts in the element were watered down. It's just, yeah, I mean, this came out in when? 1937. And in 1979, Ernest Borgnine and Richard Thomas and Donald Pleasance and Ian Holm, they were all in a TV adaptation of it, because obviously it's quite a long film, isn't it? So they did a 150-minute TV version of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard as well, this film, the 2000
is the best version, right?
Film. Well, no, it's probably people have been divisive on it. Well, what I've heard, if you've read the book, you might not intentionally like this film, because they've sort of taken elements that they want from it, that they want to tell, and they've sort of ignored other elements from the book.
Okay.
So it's not a entirely faithful adaptation of the source material, from what I understand. However, it's still a bloody good film.
Well, and I think the whole point of the film at the end of the day is basically wars are stupid. Don't do wars. No one wins in wars, do they? You know,
well, it's the human element of war that's highlighted.
Good God, man, this has been depressing, David. We've depressed people with our first two films here.
I know. How are we going to bring this back?
How are we going to bring? Oh, first of all, what would you give this? What's your rating for that?
I will give this a 8 out of 10. And Neil, I'll say if you didn't have depression going in, you will coming out.
So what you're saying is great double bill with the Banshees of Inisherin.
I feel like that caused a lot of suicides. That's dark. That was a dark joke. That maybe not. I don't know. You just get some medication after that. Make sure you got someone to talk to. Just make sure you got somebody to talk to.
Well, okay. I mean, we're not really getting into much happier territory, though. I suppose compared to the last two films.
What's next?
This is basically a knock-around comedy compared to the other films, and that is Olivia Wilde's "Don't Worry, Darling," starring The Pew and Harry Styles.
I like how she's just the Pew to you. Is she the Pew to anybody else?
I don't know, but she's the Pew. Basically, it's a mark of respect.
Aren't pews like church seats?
I don't. Probably as well, but you know, after your fake lightning story in a church at the start of the pod, you can't talk about churches. I think you'd start burning on fire if you walked in one right now.
Hey, I went to a Catholic school, man. I was very religious.
I don't believe you. Well, as I was saying, this film stars The Pew and Harry Styles, and the early trailers kind of gave
say
you
Harry Styles. Give some Harry Styles some respect on his name. It says Florence Pugh and Harry Styles.
It is The Pew and Harry Styles.
And Harry Styles.
The Pew. And look, like, so did you see the early trailers for this film?
Yeah. I mean, it's from the trailers you could gather that Harry Styles' acting's fine and everything like that, but he obviously gets outperformed by her in pretty much every scene.
Yeah, so the early trailers gave us a kind of 50s period film, crossed with hints that there is something rotten at the core, and, you know, some definite Stepford Wives vibes. And as the film starts, we meet Pew's Alice and her husband Jack, played by human mannequin Harry Styles. No, I'm joking. Look, bar Dunkirk, this is my first time seeing Styles on screen.
Bro,
this is arguably...
He's one of those people that's annoyingly talented, and that's why he frustrates me. Because he's young, good looking, and talented, and damn you for that.
And look, he is fine, right? And although he does seem to forget how to do an English accent at one point, despite being, well, English.
Is that not just his voice, then? Does he just forget to speak?
Perhaps he was. I don't honestly know what's going on with it, but yeah. You just, when you see the film, you're like, is he? When I was watching, I was like, is he supposed to be English or is he supposed to be American? Because I can't tell. So yeah, it's it was one of those.
The point.
Well, maybe. Oh. You're not going to get any spoilers from me in this review, though. So Alice and Jack live in the 50s style desert paradise town of Victory, where the men go to work every day and the women stay home, cook and clean and go for fancy lunches. And the town is run by the boss of the company, Frank, played menacingly by Chris Pine. Now, everything sounds great, right? Well, you know, except for one of Alice's friends, Margaret, who's been struggling after losing her son because, David, she took him to the one place they are told not to go. Out into the desert.
Where's that? In the desert?
In the desert, yeah.
Okay.
And they're told, just don't go out to the desert because it's dangerous out there. And her son disappears and they never find him. And Margaret is not coping very well with this. So let's just say Margaret's situation really doesn't improve and eventually Alice starts questioning the reality of her life and her overall situation as she starts to find cracks in her perfect life. So, this is Olivia Wilde's second film after the brilliant Booksmart, and is this film as good? Well, no, sadly not. But although it has its flaws, it's like we said with Nope, right? It's an example of a younger director finding their voice and taking a massive swing creatively with one of their films. You know, I wasn't a fan of Nope, but I always want films like that to be made, that they're original. It's like, and that's what Olivia Wilde's done here. She's done something really clever and really original, and it just doesn't really hit the landing. Is my issue. I will say that the film's biggest. Let me get to that. But Don't Worry, Darling could not be more different than Booksmart. Now, this is a period mystery. It's not a high school comedy drama, right? It's a period mystery film, and the highlights for me are, and again, this is when the story's not pulled you in enough or not got enough to it. It's when you notice the other things about the film. And as I was watching the film, I was thinking, wow, the production design's really fantastic in this, and wow, Florence Pugh's got a lot of nice dresses. And when you're noticing things like that, and not to downplay how great the production design is, because it is fantastic, and the costume obviously, but when you're watching a film and you'll notice things like that more so than the actual story and where it's going, I think it kind of it hasn't hit on all cylinders. I mean, it has as obviously, David, a brilliant central performance by the Pugh. She can do no wrong. She's got a new film coming out on Netflix this week called The Wonder, where it sounds a bit like Banshees of Inisherin, actually, because she plays an English nurse sent to Ireland in olden times. So that sounds like a cross between those as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think she could be in awards contention just for that. So, and the film's biggest issue really isn't Harry Styles, no matter what some people who are trying to get quick headlines might say. Look, he's perfectly fine here, and you definitely see him trying to punch up in all the scenes with Pugh. However, the biggest single problem with the film is it's that the central mystery is slightly underwhelming once the what and the why is revealed. And it's a shame because the build-up is superb. The first hour and a half, I would say, or the hour and 10 or 20, just until you find out the reason for why everything's happening. When you hit that reveal, everything up to that was really, really good. And once you get the reveal, the film ends fairly quickly after that. And I would like to have seen more of the story after the reveal, like how this happened, why that character did what they did. You know, it would have been, perhaps then the reveal might have meant a bit more if we'd been given a bit more between it, a bit more to explain it. Olivia Wilde herself gives a good performance as Pugh's friendly neighbour with her own secrets. But I'm amazed that no one is really talking about Chris Pine's performance, because he is really good in this. He's kind of got the kind of cult leader tech CEO thing going on as Frank, the head of the mysterious Victory Project. And I'll give a shout out to Nick Kroll, who is a comedy genius from the well-known comedy The League, which I love. And obviously he does the main voice on Big Mouth as well. Mm-hmm. And he does really well with the small amount of time he has. Just as Gemma Chan does, who rocks over from the Eternals. And I think she doesn't get a lot to do, but she does really well with what she is given. Now, and as I said at the outset, I still haven't really bothered delving into all the behind-the-scenes bollocks to go with this, because frankly, none of it matters. What I will say in regards to that, though, is it seems to definitely be an issue in the media how biased the reporting is on Wilde just because she's a woman and dating her co-star. And it's been said in a lot of places, right? Yeah, I know, I agree. A director making his second film, dating his lead actress, wouldn't even be looked at twice as a story, would it? But because it's Olivia Wilde and it's Harry Styles, that became the story more so than, wait a minute, she's made this really interesting second film that's a million miles away from her comfort zone from what she did in her first film.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, to be honest, I sort of blanked myself to it altogether. I wasn't even aware that they were dating. And now having heard that news, I honestly couldn't give a shit. Whether, I'm not like, oh, Harry Styles only got that job because, or, there's like so many good director-actor pairs out there.
Yeah.
So I can't name one at the moment off the top of my head, but they exist. But what I know, like from stories going in, is like what was she sort of talked about, like bullying and stuff on set or something, and going on, was it that? But like, I agree with you that if I think if that was a man, it probably wouldn't have made the news at all.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't have been a story.
It's like sort of negative press that's going on around it circulates just because she was a woman.
And probably just because of how famous Styles is as well, unfortunately. So, it's going to be one of that thing which whatever woman's going out with Harry Styles is going to get shit on in the media because that's what people like to do, right? So it's not even, it's more the media. Well, it is.
Yeah, I mean, we shat on
fault.
him a little bit as well, didn't we?
A little bit, but look, right, he's up there against one of the best actresses in the world right now. And, he's doing well. He's taking smaller roles and stuff. There is a bit where you see a Bond poster on a wall, and I'm just like, no. Do not hint at that, please. No.
What is Harry Styles being the next James Bond?
I mean, they've clearly done it to start the rumour, right, and start the thing about it. Yeah, there's a Bond poster.
He's not got the physicality for the role, surely. How tall is he?
Well, it doesn't matter really, does it? It's just that, No. I mean, I'm not that fussed about Bond anyway, to be fair now, man. I mean, I think the Mission Impossible films
I love Bond, but I wouldn't have thought Harry Styles was in the running for that.
Getting back to Don't Worry, Darling, I would say one other thing I really love about it is the music, right? There is such perfect song choice. I like my music. And once you know what the reveal is, the songs are perfectly picked. It's some of the best. It's up there for one of the best sort of sounds, whoever, I can't even remember the name of the job. The people who pick the songs that goes in the movie, that's what the person who does that should get all their money for this because it was absolutely perfect song choices. And there's some really weird bits in it, man. Like there's just it keeps you off guard, and that's the main problem with the film. I'd rather though see a film like this that is brave, swings for the fences, and just misses because the reveal. Because I think once you get to the reveal, as you're watching the film, you're kind of thinking. I mean, I suppose I was enjoying it that much in the subtle build-up. I was like, I'm not really wondering where it's going. I'm just enjoying the ride. But once you know it, you kind of think, okay, well, there's only A, B, or C where this story could really go, and you've gone for B, which is fine. But I think all the build-up wasn't actually worth the payoff in the end, So just because the film wasn't a smash hit, I don't think it means Wilde shouldn't get another film to direct. There is some exquisite filmmaking here on display. You've got amazing production design, great music choices, stunning cinematography.
Why would that
great
come
acting
into people's thought process?
Well, because, and if you look at it in the industry, if you're a woman who makes a film that doesn't make money, that's it, generally. Sorry, that's it. You had your one chance, even though you've made another film, And
that
sadly,
surely isn't the case.
I mean, it's hopefully it's not as bad as it is, but I'm sure there's loads of female filmmakers out there what was
Catherine Bigelow's second film?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I want to say Near Dark, which is amazing, one of the best vampire films of all time. But I don't know what... I couldn't tell you what her first film was, actually, to be honest. But that's what I mean. There's a handful of female directors out there, right? And even Bigelow had to battle accusations for a lot of her early career that, because she was with James Cameron, that's why...
Yeah.
Exactly. So... But yeah, do you know what I say? You get such a brilliant performance by the Pew. But yeah, like I've just said, what lets the film down is its final third in the reveal. But this was really, really close to being a really great movie. And it's just story issues that it's merely a good movie, I think, that shows much more promise for everyone involved. And you really can't go wrong with the Pew. So I'd give this a 3 out of 5 or a 6 out of 10. So it's definitely worth a watch, though, Dave. And I think you will enjoy it when you see it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Neil. I will. It's one of those that's on the cinema list. That's now not in the cinema. So
no, exactly. So it'll be on streaming very soon. Yeah. And we had a little bit of a respite from dark depravity and just general mayhem. But David, what are we talking about next?
Let's get talking about a man that likes to eat people. That's correct, Neil. Talking about Jeffrey Dahmer with the series Dahmer Monster. The Jeffrey Dahmer story. Brought to you by Ryan Murphy, who of course is known for Glee, very happy film, and happy show, sorry, and American Horror Story. Probably more related to this one. And it is starring Evan Peters as the serial killer himself, Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, the show, you haven't watched the show, have you?
I watched the first episode.
The show basically just tells you the story of his life at different elements of it, from when he's a child to when he's an adult to the end of his life. And it is very much it opens up the conversation of nature versus nurture within the context. The show's perfectly fine. However, the The problem I have with these sort of shows is there a need for them? Like, why is there this driving obsession with serial killers and the infamous in like the media, and why do people want to see and know more about these people and the minds and how they tick and how they work? But it's not just that, it's also what they did to their victims. And the show does, at the end of the show, explore more about the victims and what they went through and their names. However, at the very beginning, and I really disliked it, was that it humanized Dahmer to a point where you felt bad for him and you could kind of understand why he did certain things. But I shouldn't be feeling that way about this man. This is a man that killed, 19 people? 8, how many people did he kill? 19?
I'm happy to not have that information in my brain, David.
He got done 15 life sentences. He did 16 murders, 17 victims. There we go. I was around the mark. But anyway, he killed a lot of people. Right? It's not a nice man. Why do we need media that humanizes his story? Why do I want to know that he had a difficult childhood, and then it's like, oh, okay, it makes sense as to why he did this. It makes sense as to why he did this. Oh, because he was really obsessed with killing animals, and he was really obsessed with taking them apart, and he got sexual gratification from it. I don't want to know about the killer. I'd much rather know about the victims. Who were the victims? What was their life like? And the best episode of Dahmer, and you can watch it as a singular episode if you wanted, because it's that good, was Silence. Episode 6. It's called Silenced. You sort of switch perspectives. You don't follow Dahmer anymore. You follow one of his victims called Tony. He was deaf, and you're involved more in his life, and then you know how it ends for him. You know how it's gonna end for him. You don't want it to happen, and Silenced is a beautiful episode and something that you should watch. But yeah, the overall and the arcing thing that I want to discuss with you, Neil, is the obsession with serial killers, the obsession with the infamous. Why we want to watch this content? Because there's the story that's recently broke that there's going to be 2 more monster shows that are coming to Netflix. We don't know what kind of serial killer they're going to be on at the moment. Ted Bundy's the obvious one.
Hasn't Ted Bundy been done to death in the last couple of years, though?
Yeah, but not to the extent that this was done. Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, maybe.
So great. So we spend even more time trying to, like you said, humanize a serial killer.
Yeah, it is something that I don't get me wrong. I can understand why people want to watch these type of shows, because it is that discussion over nature versus nurture. It is that interest and fascination with what's going on. But however, I want to see more done on the victim side of it than the killer. I don't want to see a no. If I would much rather have watched 10 episodes of hearing about the victims, their stories, telling their stories, and then at the end of it having Dahmer do what he does. That would have made more sense to me in a way than having it be all about Dahmer.
But don't you think doing that, I still think the problem is, I mean, from what I've heard as well, the show's quite graphic in its depictions of what it does.
Not really, not to the extent of, like, you don't necessarily see anything. It's more implications. You see like oh, there's a head in his fridge, or oh, there's bones. I
saw the head in the fridge. Yeah, that was in the first episode.
Or there's bones in his something, or he's keeping bones under his bed, but you don't actually see any of it happening. Really, you don't see him chopping someone's head off, or you don't see him.
So I've got a few notes I made from that first episode, mate. So yeah, so like you say, I watched the first episode and it actually wrong-footed me, because I thought, oh, here we are. He's gonna get. I should have guessed with the year at the start. This was the year he got caught. Because honestly, I thought the first guy in that first episode was toast. I thought that's it. He's gonna get killed. And so it did wrong-foot me, and it was very tense and well acted. With the kind of the cat and mouse game. I think it's an age thing, man. I think the older you get, the more uneasy you get about watching shows like this that are made without the proper checks with the families involved. And that's kind of the main controversy here, right? That it is exploiting for financial gain. Netflix are the production company, everyone involved with making a show who are getting paid for making this story. They're making entertainment about a family member of someone being horribly murdered and having that reimagined in detail on screen for those people to have to see again.
Which
And that is my big problem with it. And it's funny, when I was younger, I wasn't really, you didn't really think about it. It's like, oh yeah, it's just another serial killer show. But I think it's a thing as you get, I don't know, I think for me personally, it's something that as you get older, you think about it a bit more. When you're younger, it's a bit more, oh, that's sick,
I mean, I can't really comment on the age thing, but I don't know whether that's correct or not. But on the exploiting for financial gains, the story of the victims and everything like that, it's something that's actually approached in the show. So in the show, they talk about, for instance, there was a billionaire or a millionaire that they were going to auction off all of Jeffrey Dahmer's, instruments of murder, so that it could go into somebody's collection. And a millionaire purchased it all and then just destroyed it because he didn't want that for the victims. Which is fucking amazing. That billionaire, well done. I've forgotten his name, but it makes sense, right? You don't want to do that, but and there's like his dad Lionel, who wrote a book on it, and he's trying to financially gain from it. But then it's like, okay, all the proceeds have got to go to the victims, and he's like, what? Why have all the proceeds got to go to the victims? And he's sort of like thrown by it. Any royalties from it half of it go to the victims, all of it goes to the victims. So he's not going to make a penny out of it. But but I don't know if I'm not sure because I haven't researched into it, but so I'm not sure what the show has actually done for the victims. Whether if it did nothing, if it did absolutely nothing, it didn't donate anything to charity, it didn't try and make a park, it didn't try and create the park that they try and talk about within the show to commemorate the victims from when the building where he committed everything happened. I don't know. I don't know whether they've got plans to do something. I feel like they should, because it would make sense. It would make it more worthwhile as to why you're doing something like this. Because otherwise, I feel like it's a story that has been told. I can see why people will enjoy watching it, and it's one of Netflix's most successful shows. So people obviously love the content, which is why they're going to make 2 more. But for me, I really struggle. Natasha loves them. Natasha loves these sort of shows. She loves to understand the workings of a serial killer's mind. So she loved the show. And to be fair, Evan Peters' performance in it was fantastic as Jeffrey Dahmer. Only highlighted even more from when I started watching the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes on Netflix as well. A Conversation with a Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes, where you see his actual Jeffrey Dahmer himself, and then you're like, fucking hell, yeah, Evan Peters got it spot on.
I've just been doing a little research when you do it, and the mother of Tony Hughes actually said she doesn't understand how the TV show could have been made. I mean, she's 85 now, right? And she's just said, well, clearly it didn't happen like that. I don't see how they can do that, she said, before adding, it's difficult to talk about it still. I don't see how they can use our names and put stuff out there like that. And as there is a growing chorus of people whose relatives were murdered by Dahmer, who really weren't happy with the show. And the reason being is Netflix apparently wasn't required to consult victims' families because the events it portrays are public record. But again, the cousin of one of the victims, Errol Lindsay, his cousin Eric Perry, said, well, having to see that on, not even having to see it, but having it be out there again, it was re-traumatizing for all the families and connections. You know?
It's a real problem, and I have a massive issue with it. I don't agree with it at all, and I think the victims, like I said, the silenced episode where it concentrates more on the victim is much more important than trying to humanize Dahmer, and I feel like more should have been done for the victims. They should have at least got some money out of this, or they should have had something. The victims' families, obviously.
Do you know what, mate? I'm probably not going to go back to this.
Oh, don't get me wrong. It's worth a watch. It's very well made. It is very good show. It gets better towards the end, and it
because he's going to get caught.
And you should definitely watch the silenced episode, because that is probably one of the best episodes of TV I've watched for all year. It's very good. You can just watch it on your own as well. So if you're interested in watching Dahmer, but you don't want to watch the whole show for whatever reason, just check out the silenced episode. It is worth a watch. However, on this as well, the main thing that the show also touches upon is racism within the state of Milwaukee.
Okay.
Which is equally as big a monster as Dahmer was himself. Milwaukee Police Department are the second biggest criminal in the show. I mean, I really hope that the writers made up some of the stuff that the Milwaukee Police Department do in this film, in the show. Sorry.
Having said that, if a lot of the stuff's public record, perhaps they didn't.
I really hope. I mean, I know for a fact that they gave. I mean, I say for a fact. I don't know for a fact, but I know that they did give the one of the victims back to Dharma. I mean, that's public record as well. So and that's because they didn't want to talk about homosexuality between the two of them. Dharma's like, oh yeah, he's my boyfriend. You know, we're just doing gay things, and the police officers are just like, I don't want anything to do with this homosexuality. So yeah, homosexuality and racism in this show are massively highlighted, and the corruption of the Milwaukee Police Department just showing a blind eye to that sort of community. Milwaukee, they do not come. The police department do not come out of this in any way, shape, or form in a good way, in a good light. It is quite damning on them at that time, rightfully so. If any of it is correct, I don't even know, man. It's honestly, it's disturbing. Dharma was disturbing himself, and that fucking police department was disturbing.
Because, like you say, this is based on this is a Ryan Murphy show, right? Now, coming out soon over here in America, he's made this show pretty much, just a little bit later in it, the new series of American Horror Story, NYC, and the story is. It's about a serial killer who is targeting gay men in New York in 1981.
Yeah, pretty
and it's the whole
familiar.
thing. Yeah, and it's the whole thing where the department isn't taking it seriously, and one of the main characters is actually a closeted gay detective himself, played by English actor Russell Tovey, and his partner is a journalist who writes for one of the only gay papers in the city. And I've only seen the first two, but it just made me think. I was like, well, this seems very similar to Dharma. And it's just like, in a way that is, and I was interested. Like, is this based on a true story or not? And again, from what I've read, is that elements are taking inspirations from a real life killer. Again, it's all how many serial killers killed gay men in the early 80s? Probably a lot more than we're aware of, because, like you say, problem with the police, problem with the community not reporting it, or feeling that they couldn't go to the police anyway. Which sounds like what happened in real life in the Milwaukee stuff. And that's what they're saying, and it's clearly put on screen in the New York stuff. So it makes me wonder whether the Dharma show, he tried to stick to the facts as much as he knew them, but then he kind of wanted to explore the idea of, institutional racism and homophobia by the police, and tackle it in a more fictionalized version in that show. But it does say...
Yeah, I can see that. I feel like that sort of thing would have... I feel like it impacts more knowing it actually happened and having it not be fictionalized.
But if it is fictionalized, then you don't have the problem that this show's run into of, the victims' families not being consulted.
No, totally, I get it.
I don't really know where I stand on it, because you watch stuff in the past that's been based on stuff, and you're like, I've not had that problem, but I don't know what it was.
It is
There's just something about this.
It is peculiar, man. I mean, Dennis Nilsen. Do you know Dennis Nilsen, the UK serial killer? It's a pretty similar thing.
With David
his
Tennant.
Victims, homosexual, very similar to Dharma, actually. There's a museum in, I think it's the Met have their own museum of basically serial killer artifacts and all these other famous crimes that have happened, and they've kept his pot where he used to boil his victims, and you can go and see this pot in the Met's museum.
What the hell, man?
It's kind of fucked up, to be honest with you. And there's a museum in it is. There's a museum in where is it? It's in Brighton. No, not Brighton. Is it either? No, I think it's either Brighton or Hastings. It might be Hastings. And it's a true crime museum, and you can go and see all these criminal stuff, and it is quite fascinating to see it all. But at the same time, it's like, why is all of this being kept in a museum? Why is it not being just either held in storage for evidence purposes or destroyed? Why is it being used as a public way public fascination? I don't get it personally. I don't know. Natasha loves it. She finds it really interesting.
Yeah, but your partner, she works for the police.
Kent Police, yeah. So she works in forensics.
So obviously, it's it's connected to that, man. If it's part of your job, I can see how the interest is, but I just don't. It's so hard to not. Some people will watch it and like it, for the wrong reasons, you know. And that's the worry of shows like that as well, man. I don't know what it is. For me, I think it's an age thing. As the older you get, the more you don't want to see stuff like that that's based on real things. Because I think, at least for me, I think the older you get, the more you not think about stuff like that. But I don't know. When you're younger and a bit more carefree about stuff, it doesn't sit with you. You don't think about it. You don't marinate on it as much. So where would you sit? So rating, David, on Dharma.
It's quite a difficult one to rate because it isn't an easy watch. But I'd probably give it around if you take everything, like all the negatives about the families and everything aside, and you just concentrate on it as a media, probably about four out of 5, and probably about another 8 out of 10. Yeah, it is decent. It is decent.
Decent to me is a 6 or a 7.
No, it's okay. It's good.
So finally this week, David, do you ever wake up at 3:33 in the morning?
Sorry, do I ever wake up at 3:33 in the morning?
Yes.
That's a very specific time. I've probably been awake at that time before, Neil. But I think there's something similar in isn't that same time in The Conjuring? Isn't that the same time everyone wakes up there?
It could be.
Or is it
yeah.
Insidious? One of those James Wan shows.
Well, between 3 and 4, because I'm just saying, if you did wake up around that time and you looked at your clock and it said that, it could very well be because of supernatural occurrences, as that is the time when witches, demons, and ghosts are supposed to appear and be at their most powerful. And in the Western Christian tradition, the term is known as the Devil's Hour. For between 3 and 4 a.m., it was seen as a mocking inversion of the time when Jesus supposedly died, which was 3 p.m. So that's why it's called the Devil's Hour.
Okay, right. 3 p.m. though. Oh, so an inversion of it, right? Okay.
And that mini folklore lesson takes us into Prime Video's big new Halloween show, which was a 6-parter and dropped all at the same time, The Devil's Hour, starring Peter Capaldi and Jessica Raine. Now, I've never seen the thick of it or Doctor Who, so I'm not actually that familiar with Peter Capaldi's work, but I did see him in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and, the trailer for this, when I saw it a few weeks back, I thought it was fairly bad. It looked like it was billed as a show about a mum with a spooky kid who has no emotion and, we assume, sees dead people, because there's a bit where she goes, "Who are you talking to?" And he's like, "The man over there." "There is no man." And he just points at stuff that, we can't see. People who aren't there. And from all the advertising, it was really focused on Peter Capaldi. Oh, it's his new show. And do you know what? I think the trailer and the ads have done this show a massive, massive disservice. And a massive disservice to the actual star of the show, which is Jessica Raine. So, first off here, I'm not going to spoil where the story goes, David. Because, David, watch it. We'll watch it soon.
No, I will. We're actually really interested in this show. It's interesting that you say it's mismarketed, because wasn't there another show recently that we spoke about that was mismarketed?
Well, what's interesting, right, when I wrote my review of the show, like my basic thoughts on it, I said this is a brilliant show, yada, 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 Jessica Raine's brilliant, but this show has been mismarketed as a horror show. It's more a brilliant psychological thriller where Jessica Raine is clearly the star of the show and not Peter Capaldi, and the director of 2 of the episodes liked my tweet. So, was it just them liking the tweet because, it's someone writing a positive review of our show? Or is it actually a bit more to it where they're thinking, well, yeah, actually, it was mismarketed. It's not a horror show about a spooky kid. It's a really cleverly written, brilliantly acted psychological thriller.
Someone didn't get the memo. They misread the brief.
Well, and do you know who else liked the tweet as well, David? The guys who did the music for the film. And did you see the link to that? The guys who did the music for The Devil's Hour are the Newton brothers from America. They're film score composers. And they work with Mike Flanagan, having composed for every one of his projects since Oculus back in 2013.
I love that man. I love that beautiful bald human.
So now, basically, we have a like from someone connected to Flanagan. So it's we're just one step away from getting a like from Mike Flanagan himself. And then you can, retire from Twitter, David. Or, you can retire from social media.
You can retire from Twitter because you're the one that runs it.
You're the one who can retire from your Instagram, since you've only just started your Instagram back up, haven't you?
It's going all right. I just did a story.
It's going good.
I just took a photograph of my microphone in the background. I gave away your name, Neil. Your name might be on Instagram. I
mean, I'm on Instagram, so yeah, that's fine. So first off, David, I'm not going to spoil where this show goes, because it's not really a horror show about a spooky kid. It's much, much more than that. It's a superb British psychological thriller that succeeds 100% because of the brilliant central performance of Jessica Raine as Lucy Chambers. She's a social worker who suffers from chronic insomnia, waking up from nightmares at 3:33 every night since she can remember. So forget the advertising and the talk of Capaldi. As great as he is here, this is 100% a star-making turn for Raine, who expertly runs a gamut of emotions in the show. We start the first episode, and quite a few of the early episodes, with Capaldi's character arrested and being interrogated by Nikesh Patel's D.I. Ravi Dillon and Raine's Lucy, and all three of them look to have sustained certain injuries. You get kind of vague accusations about crimes Capaldi might have committed, and then we get flashbacks to learn Lucy's story and how she's coping with insomnia and these cases of deja vu that she's having. And then you see her dealing with the issues that she has with people in her day job as a social worker, and her on and off again relationship with her son Isaac's dad, played by Ted Lasso's Jamie Tart himself. And if you think the actor Phil Dunster, who plays Jamie Tart, he gets to play a much more nuanced character in this show than he did in Lasso, although he's still a bit of a massive bellend. Now, the first few episodes really delve into Lucy's relationship with her son Isaac, and it's a really greatly understated performance by young actor Benjamin Chivers. The boy never shows emotion. He's very suggestible. So, like, if he's at school and one of the kids says, "Punch yourself in the face," he would do it, even if what people tell him to do puts him in harm's way. And his dad, Mike, Jamie Tart, wanker, can't connect with the boy at all because of this. And it's this failed relationship, which is why him and his mother break up. But as you see throughout the early episodes, Lucy really loves her son more than anything. And you can see this constant struggle on her face where she's trying to get any kind of reaction out of him. She's angry with him at one point because he doesn't respond to a joke. At other times, she's trying to, whatever she tries, she just doesn't get a reaction out of the boy. He's just, blank-faced the whole time. Doesn't show emotions.
Does she try slapping him? Physical abuse, Neil.
Yeah, you went straight to slapping the kid, didn't you? But in a later episode, Isaac smiles at something D.I. Dillon says, and you just see her reaction in the background, and it's heartbreaking. It's such good acting. I mean, Jessica Raine, she started off in quite a few BBC shows that I've never seen. I think she was most well known for Called a Midwife. She was in that. And she was in a pretty thankless role in Sky's Fortitude season 1. She got out coming back for that in season 2. But she also, probably actually the most, and this is a spoiler for Line of Duty, she had a great surprising turn in one of the early seasons of Line of Duty. And spoilers ahead, she was set up as a potential love interest for Martin Compston's Steve Arnett, the main character. And she was kind of brought in as a new central character for the show. And then she was pushed out of a window and murdered in the first episode of the series. So it's just like, she's got a very memorable death scene in that show. But honestly, man, after this show, put her in everything because she is that good. However, this isn't really a scary show. There's the odd few jump scares here and there, and I wasn't overly blown away by the first few episodes. However, it's an easy watch, and I was more intrigued by where the story might be going and what all the weird bits of the show meant. And it's a definite grower, I think. And then I think probably by the end of episode 2 or definitely episode 3, you're absolutely hooked. And by that point, I had to know what all the strangest meant. And as I'm watching it, I think, okay, they're setting up a lot here. Is the finale going to stick the landing? Do you think it stuck the landing, David?
I think what you're going on about, I'm thinking it did.
You don't think it did, or it did?
No, I did. It did.
Yeah, it did, man. Oh, man. The reveals and the explanations of the events is just superb writing. I mean, what I can say is, once you learn, again, a bit like Don't Worry, Don't, but once you get the reveals in the finale, it can be compared to quite a few other recent, it's definitely a big movie recently that I can compare it to, and a few other shows. In fact, there's another show we talked about on our podcast earlier this year that it has more than a little bit in common with. But I can see why it takes that path in the context of the show, and it does it really well. So overall, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 or an 8 out of 10 because it's a slow burn start, but each episode picks up, and by the midway point, it's just, you have to see the next one as soon as you can, and all the threads come together so perfectly in the finale. And if I'm being vague about the plot, it's because even saying where the show heads or what other shows or movies it's like, it will just clue you into the reveals in the last episode, and it's a very, very good reveal. The show has been commissioned for another 2 seasons, and I didn't know about that when the show ended. And yet, so when I watched the finale, I was like, "That's a really good ending. That's an amazing ending." And so I'm now massively intrigued to see where this show's going to be going next time. Because after all the revelations of the finale, it completely changes what the show is and where it's going. It changes the characters, the tone, the direction. So all I really have to say, David, is start watching it. Because if you don't, I'm going to start ringing you at 3:33 every morning till you watch it.
You won't set an alarm to do that. You don't have the dedication.
I'm working from home tomorrow, so it's entirely possible.
No, we will watch it. It's something that we both want to watch, so it's definitely on the list. And we'll get it done in time for our special episode with a Mr. Charlie Gallagher.
Yeah, coming up soon, as we've been away for a while. And yes, it's all my fault. It's not actually David's. I'll take full blame. I've just been busy, guys. I've been really busy. But what we have coming up next is our 50th episode, David. Half a century of We Needed Roads. And what are we going to talk about? Well,
that's a lot of fucking just us waffling on.
I know. It's a lot of waffle, man.
That's at least 100 hours of us waffling on. No, actually, will it be 100 hours? No, I can't remember. I mean, it's at least 70.
Well, we've had a couple of ones that have pushed the 3 hour mark, haven't we?
Yeah.
Our longest one was our review of the year one that went 3 hours, or I think it was our top 10 films of all time, each one. That went about 3 hours. And our shortest ever podcast, well, it was when you hadn't seen Last Night in Soho, and I had to talk about it, so I tried doing a solo one by myself, and it was about 25 minutes. And yeah. It's had about the same amount of listens. So
what are we doing, Neil? What are we doing to commemorate it?
So I thought you said to cremate it. I was like, well, we're not going to set fire to it. Although there is lots of fire in the two shows we're going to be talking about.
Oh.
Yeah, there is a link. Bow. So yeah, I mean, it's no secret that two of our most anticipated shows of the year were Prime Video's Lord of the Rings show, The Rings of Power, and our Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon. And we talked briefly about some of the earlier episodes on our most recent episodes. And since we've been away for the last month, well, they finished. And our Mondays and Fridays are just dull husks of days now, with no dragons.
You know what? I did genuinely feel a void after they ended. I was just like, oh, Fridays is just another boring day of like whatever else we were watching in the week, you know. That weekly, I miss that weekly episodic release of shows.
But did you think having them as weekly releases was so much better than being able to binge them? Because the conversation around the shows is just stretched out more.
Yeah,
people are talking about it more.
I'll tell you what, it was nicer, and you could just have something to enjoy, to look forward to at the end of like a shit Friday or whatever you had going on. Or like my Monday was always just like, Monday, fucking back to work, and then you're like, wait, fucking House of the Dragon's out tonight.
And then it's the same. Like you get through the week, you're like, ugh, work sucked. The week's been terrible. Oh, but I can go to Middle Earth for an hour.
What are my favourite Targaryens up to? Yeah.
What are the Brandyfoots up to? How's Lenny Henry getting on?
If you didn't guess, what shows?
Just in case. But what we're going to do is we're not going to, because everyone keeps trying to pit these shows against each other. Oh, which one's the best? Well, look, we've told you before, they're both brilliant shows, and they're just slightly different. So what we're going to do is I'm going to call it House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, Oscars. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a bunch of different categories, and you and me, David, we're each going to pick our favourite
Do we
category.
Need to make a decision between the two of us as to what one gets this certain option? So are we going to be like, all right, so for this one, they get it, or is it? Okay.
There's not going to be any competition. It's purely personal. So like, who's your favourite actor from House of the Dragon? Who's your favourite actress from House of the Dragon? What is the breakthrough performance?
I'm fucking glad you separated actor and actress in that. If you'd have just kept it as actor and incorporated the both, that would have been a fucking difficult choice between Emma Darcy, Paddy Constantine.
So what we're going to do as well, guys, as it's going to be, we're going to be recording this in a few weeks. So once this goes out, we'll put the post on Twitter, and we want to know your thoughts on these shows as well. We want to know who you think, and I'm going to run down the categories now, and I'll post it online nearer to the time we record this. So we want to know for both shows, who was your best breakout actor? Who is the actor who you've never seen before, and that actor or actress? So there's going to be two categories.
I can see you saying Millie Alcock for the House of the Dragon one. Is it Alcock? Is that name?
Well, I mean, a lot of people are going to say Millie Alcock, but a lot of people are also going to say the other girl whose name I can't remember, who plays Nori in Rings of Power. So you're going to have... Don't say what
no,
you think now, David.
You were pitting the two shows against each other there, though, weren't you? Are we going just one show, like from one show?
No. This is why I'm explaining it to you now. We're going to do each show one by one, and each show you are going to say who you think your favourite... So I'm going to do the categories first, right? So the categories for both shows are going to be Best Breakout Actor and Actress, Best Monster, Best Death, Best Scene, Best Monologue, Best Episode, Best Cinematography, Best Special Effects. We're going to have Best Battle, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Best Casting, Best Music, Best Kill, Biggest Twist, Overall MVP of the show, and I think that about wraps it up. So yeah, what we're going to do...
Whoa. So with Best Cinematography, is that just like your best shot, your best scene, basically within that show?
I'm not going to take it to the best. It can be scene or it can be episode, basically.
Okay, okay.
And the idea being, like I said, we're not going to picture shows against each other. It's you and me. We're going to run through each show and say what our favourite of those categories is going to be. So who my favourite actor was in it.
Sense.
Who's your favourite actor in it? And because I think I reckon we're going to agree on quite a few.
We probably will. But
we probably will.
I think it's obvious some of the key better best moments and the best stuff and the best episodes and everything like that.
So yeah, that's going to be our 50th episode. And then hopefully coming up after that, we are going to be joined by friend of the pod, Charlie Gallagher, who has another new book coming out soon. So he's going to come on to talk a bit about his next book. And we are also going to be talking on that episode, if I believe, by that point, Andor will have finished. And Andor, David, it's a hell of a show. If you've been looking at my tweets recently, I am all in on Andor. I think it's one of the best Star Wars things they've done. And I've got Charlie into it as well. Charlie started on it, and he's almost up to date as well now. So we're going to be talking full-on Season 1 Andor spoilers once the show's finished in a few weeks, and once we've recorded the pod on that. Also, as we just mentioned, The Devil's Hour. I love it. I want you to see it. Charlie's going to watch it as well, I think, by then. And so we can totally dive into that as well. And another show we've both watched is The Watcher on Netflix. So again, catch up on The Watcher, and we're going to be diving into spoilers for those three shows and having a little chat with Charlie about his upcoming new book.
Lovely. Before you close the shop, Neil.
Close the shop. I'm
have
sweeping the floor.
Quick announcement. Not really an announcement. But as we're a Back to the Future related podcast, I suppose, even though we've not done an episode yet. But we're
on that film.
We very much like Back to the Future. I thought it would be good to mention that Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd have launched their very own Back to the Future shop that you can get your Back to the Future merchandise from. And I'm looking at some of it now, and it is glorious. So if you like Back to the Future as much as we do, and I'm definitely getting that signed vest, you can purchase some. I'm sad the poster's already sold out. But yeah, the Back to the Future shop's launched. So get your Back to the Future merch, guys.
And where can we find that, David?
backtothefutureshop.com. No, backtothefuture.shop, sorry.
Backtothefuture.shop.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, I'm guessing if they don't sell it already, David, can we request that they can get a DeLorean dog bed for Cheddar?
Yeah, or and you know what? We should see if we can get our We Needed Road shirts on there.
Yeah, we should.
no one's going to buy those.
Maybe by accident, like you log on to Back to the Future shop.
You're like, oh, that's a clever one.
Drunk off your ass at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, I'm going to get that shirt. That's the Back to the Future logo. Wait, but why does it say We Needed Roads on it? We've bought the wrong one. Yep, sorry.
God damn it.
The Back to the Future shop has now closed because they've made enough money. Alrighty, guys, that's all the time we had for on this podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. We're back, baby, and we'll be back soon with our 50th episode. See you then.
You're going to see some serious shit.
We Needed Roads.